Someone is hoping to claim the seas from Curry. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys, Page Punchers, Aquaman's Ocean Master. Orm is eternally jealous of his half-brother known in the surface world as Aquaman, and has dedicated his life not only to taking his throne away from him and thereby taking it for himself, but also destroying everything and anyone he holds dear. Although they are related by blood, Orm has none of Aquaman's nobility or charity, and only exhibits ruthlessness and sadism. It goes to show that sibling rivalry can be found everywhere, even under the seas. Before we get a closer look at the Page Puncher's Ocean Master, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. Would you believe that the figure is exactly 7 inches in height? If you're factoring in, of course, that little fin that he's got at the back of his head. He is. You can see right there. 7 inches in height. Or the figure is going to be about 17 centimeters tall. Would you also believe that this is the 4th and final figure that we're going to be looking at from the Aquaman Page Puncher's wave? I hope, if you've certainly been paying attention to this channel, bringing the other figures to show the proof is in the pudding. The first figure, of course, we did have a look at from the Page Puncher's Aquaman wave was, of course, Aquaman himself. Not a great figure. Then, of course, we did have a much superior figure, if you ask me, and that's the likes of Black Manta. Then we did, of course, finish up things just before getting down to looking at Ocean Master by looking at Aqua Lad. And I did free up a little bit of space over here, because, of course, we also did want to bring in the other Ocean Master that we did get from, I believe this is the Gold Label Edition Aquaman, but essentially using the same body as the Endless Winter Aquaman. Of course, they just retooled a brand new head sculpt and gave us Ocean Master there as well. Comic-wise, you're getting more of the same, as Ocean Master comes included with Aquaman #1. Differently done, though, of course, is the fact that the front cover does have, in this case, Ocean Master, as rather the other cases where we had a look at them where Aqualad was the front of the cover for his figure, Black Manta, of course, was the front cover of his figure, and, of course, Aquaman, starting it all, did have, I guess, the truest cover art. Just to bring in, by the way, the other covers so you guys can see if you've been missing it out this whole time. We have Ocean Master, and of course we have Black Manta. In no real particular order, I'm just grabbing the stack of comic books that I have down below here. Aquaman, and then we just recently had a look at Aqualad. The issues are all exactly the same, so if you were to flip through the pages, you'll notice right away that the artwork and exactly the way the story lays out is exactly the same with all the 4 issues. You're just getting a different cover, that's all. On to then, one other thing that's samesies here is the figure, of course, comes included with a display stand. Circular stand of black. DC logo printed down below, of course, and one small little peg just waiting for a place and a belonging. We all sort of wish for a belonging, just like you, tiny little peg. It's going to come in handy. We're going to bring them back in a little bit later. The figure also comes included with a trading card. The trading card just happens to be also the same thing that was featured on the front cover of that comic book. But once again, I feel like the figures are always too small on the cards. If, of course, the subject being Ocean Master, I think they probably should have just brought him up just a little bit. Just a little bit too much empty space in the back. Yeah, sure, it gets a chance to kind of see a really nice Bob Ross-inspired tidal wave in the background, but I think that they probably should have made the character just a little bit larger. Of course, he's representing the entire card. I do like, again, the border that they've used for these. A very red font down below there saying that's Ocean Master. If we flip around to the back, it does give us the real name, and then underneath that is a paragraph read. You can read for yourself. It just happens to also be the same thing I read at the beginning of this review. Going to add these to the rest of the other cards, and just again, like we did with the comic books, I did bring in the other cards here to show you. There's Aqualad, there is Black Manta, and again, we also had Aquaman, so we're going to hold on to these cards and tuck them away in my trading card sheets. For right now, at least, I'll put those to the side. The other thing the figure comes included with is a really mean-looking trident. Just to show you the example, for example, I could use as comparisons. Here's what Aquaman's look like. Here's what Ocean Masters look like. And while maybe Aquaman would have a harder or an easier time, I guess, to spear fish, I guess Aquaman would be doing this if he talks to fishes. I think with Ocean Master, his trident being a little bit closer together like this, he'd probably have a harder time to actually pick anything up like a fork. Rather, instead, he's just going to flat out skewer it. It does look like one end of the trident is actually a little bit longer than the other, so there's really no like, it doesn't look symmetrical. That's the word I was looking for. It doesn't look like if you were to cut it right down the middle, it wouldn't look the exact same on one side as it does to the other. I do also like the additional chains that they've added to the front of it. It just, again takes essentially not the same trident, because again, like if you were to look at it, the handles are very different from one another, but it sort of takes the core idea of this one and just makes it look a whole lot meaner. This can, of course, fit into his hands. He does have, for right now at least, the means to grip him in either one of his hands. One thing, though, I did have to do, though, is I ended up having to heat the hands in hot water. The plastic that they're using for these figure hands is very hard. And in fact, like, it's always this one finger right here that's closest to the thumb that I always have the hardest time to get around the handle of the trident. Of course, once finally displayed, I'm definitely going to be having the figure with trident in hand. Now, what you could also do, too, as we're just going to remove the trident for right now, the figure has one other option available as well. Instead of maybe just relying on gripping hands at both the sides of the figure's body, you also get the option of some gestured hands, dynamic hands. And those are always nicely coming in handy as well. Say, for example, I did want to have this hand not be the hand that's holding the trident. What you can just do is simply wiggle the hand off the post, and just do it back and forth till finally it frees itself. The only one thing I will say, and one of the reasons also I wanted to show you guys how to change the hands out, is that the pegs are very much longer than I was expecting, but very narrow as well. So these could be potentially something that could run a breakage issue. So just be careful if you have any resistance to remove the hands. I might recommend the idea to you of heating those hands also in either hot water or a few passes with the hairdryer also as well. So those are the other accessories, those are the other things that make up the accessories that come along with Ocean Master. I don't know why I ended up putting him back down, only just to pick him back up again. Getting, though, a closer look at Ocean Master, what a fine-looking figure this is. Just, again, to bring in, I want to, again, stress the only example I believe we did get from McFarlane's line of DC Multiverse figures, because I'm sure we did get Multiverse figures of Ocean Master at some way point. I probably even had a look at them on the channel here. And of course, I think we also did get ourselves a couple of DC Direct versions of Ocean Master as well. But like for like, at least line for line, this is what we did get from the Gold Label Edition versions of Aquaman, which is the Aquaman body, and then they just retooled a brand new head sculpt. I really like the look of this one, but I like the sinister nature of this one here. It takes sort of the same design elements of Ocean Master and just sort of makes it a little freakier with this newer release. Of course, what would have been silver before gets dismissed altogether and then brought in some really interesting discolored gold. I think the gold actually works really well for the character. This one, while still looking good, and I like the more expression on his face, I think his mouth is better on this one than say this one right here. I kind of wish that he could have had like this mouth on this figure's body, and then that figure would have been perfect. But while this one still stays pretty clean and pristine when it comes to his costuming, this version of Ocean Master, on the other hand, looks again like he's just really been in the war trenches. He does have some darker colors really represented here for the costuming of his suit. It's sort of kind of more of a very, very dark bluish black, if that makes any sense at all. It's not quite black, it's not quite blue, it's somewhere happily in the middle. Again, you've got the really nice gold represented here that only makes up the front of his face, and get a load of the face there. Like, the mouth, I think, is obviously way too small. There's no way that they'd be able to do the larger mouth like this one has in his expression. But I really do like the head sculpt on this one quite a bit. Even just to look at the texturing that they've done to the back of the head, how he has that one fin that runs up the middle here. It certainly looks a little bit more amphibian than perhaps the other Ocean Master we looked at before. That still same gold gets carried over here to the shoulders. And again, like, the shoulders themselves just look rough. And just, they don't have a real clean design to them. And that's maybe one of the reasons why I like this figure so much. He does have, again, that scaling and spikes sticking out his gauntlets here that also have the same use of gold. And he also has gold here represented on the front of his belt, which also makes its way down the sides with these tiny little fins. Not so much fins, these flaps that he's got running down the sides of his legs. Even where there's sections that aren't necessarily getting paint, they still afforded them a lot of texturing. So you can see, like, the coarseness sort of texture that they've sculpted to the plastic. It looks really good on this figure's body. Down below, of course, we have very elaborate looking boots. The boots themselves look like he's just walking around wearing fishes on his feet. Again, you've got some really nice, interesting sculpting there. I would imagine in a case like this, I don't know that they've actually would have painted this, or they just relied on the plastic alone. Because it does look like his feet, for example, are gold. And it does look like, obviously, it looks like it's sharing the exact same gold. I wonder if they actually did paint this, or, yeah, because, like, his boot is clearly attached to the rest of his body. I don't think it was a separate piece. So maybe what they did end up doing is painting in gold, leaving, of course, the blue behind for the plastic molding. Then, of course, the figure does have a very coarse, rough-looking cape. The cape does have sort of a Batman design with little spikes down below here, but it's got some really interesting texturing to it as well. It's got some natural folds and drapes and stuff to the way a cape would naturally fall down on a figure's body. And it's a little bit more of a softer plastic also as well. For the figure's articulation, getting back to his head sculpt, I just love this head sculpt on Ocean Master. His head is on a ball joint, though be careful while you're all rotating it around. He normally would be able to clear it, but it's these tiny little fin spikes that he's got sticking out the bottoms of his face that run up against the sides of his cape. So while, for all intents and purposes, you'd be able to rotate his head all the way around, the whole time you're doing it, you certainly feel like you're hitting something along the ways. Head does look down, it does also look up, and you can also rock it back and forth as well. As for the shoulders do come out. Now, where they've smartly added the shoulders is not here, but rather at the top. And normally, I would be one that would actually have the shoulders here, but in a case like this, the shoulders don't get in the way of things at all. They're fairly soft plastic, and certainly when it comes to even bringing the arms out for Ocean Master, easily can pull off 90 degrees, and I don't have to worry about the shoulders at all. The only time you're going to have a problem with the shoulders, where it probably would have been more beneficial to have shoulders attaching here, is if you ever decide you want to rotate the figure past the point of, say, here and past the point of here. Anything past those 2 points, you're going to obviously start to hit resistance and could potentially rip the plastic of the actual shoulder pad off his body. You definitely don't want that. But yeah, the figure does have a swivel in his bicep. The figure has a double hinge on his elbow, all still the same as the other figures we looked at before. Hands rotate all the way around. Of course, you can hinge them back and forth also as well. The upper torso is, once again, on a very generous ball joint. You can also as well see that he does have a secondary ball joint at the base where the abdomen meets the waist. As for the waist itself, this is a softer plastic. And when it comes to moving his legs out, I find like these little flaps that he's got on the sides of his legs sort of start to impede a little bit of the leg movement if you want to split the legs out. It gets really tight quarters here, but you also have, of course, the resistance of the straps here, the little flaps here, kind of get in the way of things also as well. The legs, though, do move forward, but again, I feel like the way they've designed the trunks almost sit almost a little too low, so when it comes to even moving like the legs, you can only move them to about here, which was like 45 degrees. You can also move them back also as well. Figure swivels at the top of the thigh. The figure also possesses double hinges on his knees. And while it did look, for example, for a second like they may have molded this in gold plastic, the fact that I can't do anything with this, moving this around, makes me think that they probably did in fact paint this over top of the blue plastic. Which, if that is the case, the boots are really well painted. As for certainly the ankle articulation, you can move them up and down this way. You can rock them back and forth this way. And as the case as the other three figures we looked at before, Ocean Master does have toe articulation as well. Nice looking figure though, nice looking figure. I'm not really sure, to be all honest, looking at this one and then comparing it with, say, the other figures we've already had a look at here, which is my favorite from this wave. Obviously, again, I keep going back to this point. I really like Black Manta. But do I like them from a character standpoint? Do I honestly, though, like him more as a figure? Well, I do like him as a figure. He's not a perfect Black Manta, but he's the most perfect one we have for right now. I can already tell you my least favorite was Aquaman. You know, Aquaman had good elements to him, but he's far, for me at least, my favorite of this set. I would almost even say from a sculpt standpoint, Aqualad is really good, really high on my list, as well as Ocean Master. So while I am a big fan of, obviously, Black Manta, I might say the best figures from the 4-figure waves we looked at, a 4-figure set that we've looked at, the 4 videos, obviously, I'd probably say Aqualad first, Ocean Master, and I feel pain to say that, because obviously that means that Black Manta would be in the 3rd place, but I would always say Aqualad, probably Ocean Master, Black Manta, and then obviously the very distant 4th place would be Aquaman. And just one last time to bring in the also gold labeled edition of Ocean Master. While I do like, again, like the head sculpt, and that's not changing, I do like the way they've actually put the facial expression on this version of Ocean Master. All in all, head to toe though, this is my favorite Ocean Master we've gotten so far from McFarlane's team. I did make that promise to that display stand. I was really going to ultimately bring him back for final looks, and ultimately, though, I didn't really need you. And now I sort of feel bad about even making that promise in the first place. Ocean Master, despite for the fact that he actually is wielding a very, very large trident, doesn't seem to have too many issues standing. The same can unfortunately be said for his brother, because of course I did have some wobbly ankles on that particular Aquaman that we had a look at. But that's okay. I'm going to be using the display stand. So even though I I broke my promise to the display stand for this review. I'll just ultimately maybe use that display stand for Aquaman because he definitely does need it. I do like the way that I've got him displayed here, making, of course, use of only one gripping hand to wield the trident in one. And, of course, I've got the dynamic hand on the other hand, literally on the other hand. And I do, again, like the way that I've got this posed right now. The cape does, in a way, does have some stability to it. Maybe because he does have some front heaviness by him holding a weapon like this. By having the cape also draped the way that it does, it sort of does give him a little bit of stabilizing, like, support on the back of the figure's body. Speaking of the figure's body, though, one thing I did really want to, again, go back and address is the fact that Oceanmaster just has a really neatly designed suit. Darker, sort of a dark bluish black is the costume color that they've chose, and some really nice use of metallic gold. The thing about the gold, though, is, again, like, still looking at this, I would imagine, again, they probably would have painted the gold, not relying on gold plastic. Molding gold plastic, at least back in the 90s, would have been all troublesome. I mean, troublesome, the idea of even molding anything in gold plastic. Anybody will tell you things back in the 90s, early 2000s that were molded in gold will already tell you that those things would have had fracture points or even just start to crumble in collectors' hands. In this case, I don't think was really the case that they did mold this in gold plastic, but rather they painted in gold, and it does look really nice. I don't think this is a case either where the figure necessarily needs contrasting paint. The single coat of gold paint that they applied to all his armor, I think honestly is enough. I like the darker, more off colors that he has represented here. He doesn't have yellows, he has sort of a dingier gold. He doesn't have blue, he has sort of more of a dark bluish black. And instead of have a very vibrant red, he sort of has this off-colored, almost organ-colored red, if I can use that as a description. All in all, like head to toe, he's a great-looking figure. This one is definitely going to be going on the shelf. Not that much different, really, the way I've got him displayed as of right now. What do you guys think of Oceanmaster? Let me know down below in the comments section. And, you know, while I'm just talking about Oceanmaster, and just also, we just recently looked at the Black Manta, and I said that Black Manta was one of my favorite DC villains. Maybe just to throw this out as a video question for you, the viewing audience, who's your favorite DC villain? Let me know down below in the comments section. Some of you might even say, I don't even like DC at all. I just like Marvel. Okay, okay, we can maybe broaden the spectrum then just by saying, not just solely saying DC. What's your favorite comic villain? Let me know down below in the comments section. Is Oceanmaster, does he make your, say, top 10? Maybe he doesn't. Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly do want to stick around for more, make sure, if you haven't already done so, that you hit that subscribe button down below, and that you're also turning on the bell notification. You got a little bit of time on your hands? I hope so. Popping up at the very end of this video will also be a playlist that will feature not only the figures, the 4 figures that we've looked at from the Page Puncher's Wave, but it will, in fact, also cover off all the other DC Multiverse figures I've ever looked at from McFarlane's team, which I think is pretty much all of them. There's a few, obviously, anybody could probably look at them and say, well, you didn't do this one, you didn't do this one. Okay, I didn't do all of them, but I did do a good chunk of them, and you'll find them all in the playlist. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.